The big story is from the neighborhood of Bharat, viewers. Protests have erupted after a ban on social media in Nepal, where agitations have spread to major cities across the country. Nepal has imposed a ban on 26 social media sites, including Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, accusing them of failing to comply with Nepal's INB regulations. Tension spread in the Nepal Parliament complex when protesters broke the police barricades. The cops responded with water cannons, tear gas and rubber bullets. But further clashes also led to police opening fire, killing at least 9 people. Protests have spread to other major towns and cities with escalating anger against the KP Oli government. The social media ban is seen as the latest flashpoint after years of anger against the KP Sharma Oli-led government. There is public anger against corruption, authoritarianism, poor health and education systems. Social media seen as a platform to vent frustrations over governance issues in Nepal. Young Nepalese allege suppression of freedom of speech and right to expression. There is growing frustration over press freedom due to passage of various restrictive bills. But the Prime Minister has defended his government's decision, stressing that the move was about upholding national dignity to ensure social media platforms follow Nepal's laws and pay taxes. Listen in.
हामी हुन त सीमानाको छलफल सार्वभौम सत्ताको छलफल स्वाधीनता र स्वतन्त्रताको छलफल गरिरहेका छौँ नि मान्छे पहिले आफै स्वतन्त्र छैन आफ्नै खोपडी स्वतन्त्र छैन आफै चिन्तन स्वतन्त्र ढंगले चिन्तन गर्न सक्दैन भने अनि त्यसले स्वतन्त्रता कहाँबाट स्वतन्त्र ल्याउँछ अलि घाक बुद्धिजीवीहरूको एउटा घाक पत्रिकामा आज एउटा इन्टरभ्यू देखाएको थिएँ मैले भव्य तस्बिर समेत व्यक्तित्ववाला तस्बिर समेत आएको थियो मेसेज बुझ्न नसक्ने मेसेन्जर माथि नियन्त्रण गर्ने भन्ने तुकबन्दी कस्तो राम्रो छ.
But the protests show no signs of dying down, spreading to Bharatpur, Pokhara, Biratnagar, Butwal, Jhapa and Chitwan. Reports suggest the protests are also forcing some in the KP Sharma-led Nepal government to mull revoking the social media ban and roll out compliance rules in a phased manner. But this country has seen pro-monarchy agitations that have paralyzed it for several weeks and continues to face political instability. Similar to Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. Is this another powder keg in Bharat's neighborhood is another big question that comes to mind. Also, are we seeing genuine student anger or a well-planned conspiracy in Nepal? Let's discuss this and understand what experts, people who are watching this region very carefully think, believe. Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey, former GOC 15 Corps with us. Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, former diplomat with us. And we also have Anand Ranganathan, Dr. Anand Ranganathan, scientist, author, political commentator. But first, we'll try and go across to Khushbu Oli, leader of the RPP Nepal, joining us from Kathmandu. So Khushbu ji is not yet through with us. So let me ask Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, what's your reading of the situation, Ambassador? Is this a redo of Sri Lanka, Pakistan and also Bangladesh, or is it something different?
Well, I hope it is different because what has happened in Bangladesh and is happening in Bangladesh is worrisome for India. So let's hope that America is not involved, let me put it bluntly, as it was suspected to be involved in the Bangladesh uprising. But what worries me is the repetition of protests one after the other. In March of this year, there was pro-monarchy protest. And this particular protest by students, by an organization called Ami Nepal, which is a non-profit organization and has a reasonably good reputation of doing social work by youngsters. So they had been given permission to hold this protest. When the protest turned out to be much larger than authorities expected, then authorities went in a very, very ham-handed manner and started firing at the youth. Imagine firing directly at the youth, according to the reports that I have received,
Yeah.
and with the intention of killing them. And if the news reports are to be believed, at least 20 have been killed and many more injured. Perhaps the score could be much more. The other thing is that these protests, especially by the youth, do not happen overnight. They are engineered and taken advantage of. So, which is the country which is going to benefit the most from this? I can only think of America or Pakistan, but Pakistan is busy with its own protests and Balochistan and so on. So, if America is involved, we have to think very seriously as to how things shape up in Nepal. The second thing which disturbs me is that, I have had a long experience of handling Nepal.
Yeah.
From university days, when all the Koiralas used to be with me in Banaras University. From my first posting in MEA, handling the Nepal desk, and those friendships continue. So there is a sweet and sour relationship between India and Nepal. The sweetness is when Nepal is in times of difficulty, they always come to India, personally or politically. In this case, let me also add that Oli is not a single party majority. He has 79 members only in parliament. Nepal Congress has 80 members. So Nepal Congress will be equally affected if these protests continue, because Nepal Congress does not take a very anti-youth side. So it's a tricky situation because there are two parties involved, and I would not be surprised if Nepal Congress at some point decides to withdraw its support to Oli.
Right. Ambassador, we've got Khushbu Oli of the RPP with us. Khushbu ji, namaste. How's the situation? How is the situation on ground, Khushbu ji, and can you explain to us what's happening in Nepal?
I'm at the hospital right now where the victims are being treated. The casualties are here. I'm at the hospital trauma center. The deaths have increased to 21, and there are children as young as 13, 14, 16, 18. So the situation is very, very highly disturbing, and people are still on the streets at many places. A lot of cities in Kathmandu have been under curfew, and it is a tragic situation because it's unbelievable. I don't know what escalated the situation so bad that the government chose to shoot at young children. We thought are all children, they made it absolutely clear that they were on the streets to protest against the social media ban and rampant corruption. They had publicly pledged to remain peaceful, not to engage in violence, and to respect public property. These young people were unarmed, yet the forces, the state, used so much excessive force against them. If you remember the demonstrations that happened against the monarch earlier, until the 6 days of the protest, there was no shooting order by the then monarch or the government.
Right.
But I don't know what happened. In 4 hours of time today, it escalated to such a high level, that the government actually gave order to shoot, and children have been shot in foreheads. Even my children were out there in the protest. We sent them because we wanted them to be their own voices. And for the first time of the youth, this generation of the youth had come out on the street, because generally this generation usually gives a statement like, we hate politics. Politics is a dirty game. But they chose to, be with the with the public, and then planned this demonstration very peacefully. But unfortunate, some of our kids could not make it back home. It's very disturbing, highly disturbing, and still there are protests being held in many places, and police has even fired tear gases into the hospital, and it's a tragic situation.
But how did it become violent? Because we're given to understand this Ami Nepal, this group, they had permission to hold the protests. Why did these students storm the Nepal parliament? Did the students escalate, or was it because of police action that they decided to storm and then also vandalize, and we can see evidences of arson also?
See, you can't always take control of the forces, right? And demonstrations like this cannot be kept under control. But as far as my experience, for the past demonstrations that LPP led in earlier 6 months back, there was also, infiltrations by the government. There were police officers on top of the roofs, and they were firing tear gases, firing gunshots. So today also, we believe that it could be possible that there were infiltrators and vigilantes that were deployed to provoke the chaos, exposing, and making it look like a narrative that the kids were, the youths were chaotic. And, so I think it was administration's dictatorial intentions, and tragically, because of that, usually the Prime Minister, the Nepal government, especially this Prime Minister, has always avoided to listen to public grievances. So everything that has happened today is not just a single about the ban of the social media, right? It's not just that. The real reason behind the ban from this government was political. These leaders were fearing the political literacy and awareness that the social media was creating amongst the citizens, amongst the youths, amongst the elderly. So they wanted to control the negative, the narrative that was floating around, the corruptions that was being publicly shamed. So, they try to suppress any forms of criticisms or negative coverage about themselves. So, in short, if I say it was not about law or registration or anything, it was just about consolidating power, silencing the dissent, and
but in that
restricting
case,
the people's right to information.
So, before I bring in our other panelists also, Khushbuji, I request you to stay on with us. I just have one more question with you. If it was really social media ban and that the government orchestrated it, how is it that TikTok is working? Some of the platforms have registered. TikTok is working. One of the platforms have registered. So, is it purely that, or is it that there were social media firms who were upset that the government is trying to regulate them, and then they are backing these kind of violence on the street? Is there any merit to such an argument?
See, TikTok was banned earlier when Prachandaji was the Prime Minister. Under his government, TikTok was banned. And when TikTok came for registration, then the ban was lifted. So it's not that TikTok was given a special exemption this time. It's not that. But it is, the government did not understand that when the social media bill is in the parliament and it's under the review, it's under the review, what was the need to suddenly ban it without prior notice to the public? Because, if you see, social media is not just an entertainment in Nepal anymore. It is a vital source of income for many youngsters, many people who have earlier been unemployed, and professional work for lots of them are being generated from social media itself. So the government's ban had also disrupted the communication between the Nepali people living outside of Nepal. And, they were not being able to connect to their families back here. So the frustration was building. And 2 days back, there was an incident where one of the ministers had hit a child in the street and he ran away. So it was a hit and run case. And the Prime Minister later gave a statement saying that nothing was wrong there. The child was just slightly hit by the minister's car, and you just should not politicize this. So I think these all incidents reflect what kind of a Prime Minister he is, how unempathetic he is towards the public, towards the young children. Because, your girl as young as 12-year-old was hit, and, the minister had left the spot without even stopping the vehicle for 1 second, and the Prime Minister giving such a statement, had really got the public furious. So I think it's not just about social media ban. It's majorly about corruption, lack of opportunities, And
Right. So
the
you're saying,
condition of
so
the
somewhere you're
country.
saying it was all simmering for a while, along with the pro-monarchy protests. It's been simmering and been on the boil for a while, and perhaps the
Yes.
social media ban was a tipping point. Would you please stay on with us? You're still on the frame. You're live on television. General Pandey is with us. Dr. Anand Ranganathan is with us, and Ambassador Rajiv Dogra also with us. So we'll bring in their opinions in. General Pandey and then Dr. Ranganathan. Yes, General Pandey.
Yeah, so I will not like to simplistically put it that this is about politics, internal politics, and everything. Firstly, as already brought up by Ambassador, that the pro-monarchy protests were on, and actually nothing happened. Why suddenly 2021 kids have been killed, all teenagers? There are a couple of pointers here which we need to see actually, and then connect to the geopolitical environment today. One is this entire springing of across Nepal, the entire youth when they come out to the street together. That means there is some sort of a calibration which is happening behind the scenes, right?
Okay.
Second is today Nepal is on three poles, I will rather say. One is the democratic system, second is communist control, and the third is an aspiration to go back to monarchy, right? And the third is that in the modern day, when a communist government tries to bring in a controlling measure, when you're boxed in on the northern part, an iron curtain kind of system, which they have their own internet and their entire system, but onto the south you have a democracy system which is working,
Right.
then there will be a conflict which is obvious, which is aspirational from the youth. So I think this aspirations of the youth has been incited, has been exploited. Now, when you look at it, TikTok is Chinese owned. Rest everything which is Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Signal, all these things have been banned are actually Western oriented, right? So straight away there is a conflict here. Now the start point which you came about, or the Ambassador Dograji has just simply said, where does it affect, whom does it affect, who can control and leverage this
Right.
visit, right? Now let's go to the larger challenge. What has happened? Why? How it started in Bangladesh, right? Suddenly overnight, everything boiled over against Hasina government. Entire Bangladesh was into up in arms. It took a couple of days to actually turn into a violent this thing. But the fact of the matter is, it sprung all over the country.
Right.
Sri Lanka, flash to the point, it came to a boil. Why is it this suddenly the region here, the Indian subcontinent region, is seeing so much of an unrest and interest? Who is contesting for space? Why is it that some major power which was looking elsewhere has started showing greater interest in terms of trade, tariff, political, military engagement going into the side? I think there is a pivot which is happening, and the contest and the sufferers are going to be common people. Of course, the Nepalese government should have understood that today social media is not only watching YouTube channels or for communication with people. It is also about job. It is also about knowledge. It's also about news. And once you have been fed, today internet ban is more often than like a human rights violation. Like I was in
Right.
Kashmir. You shut down the internet for a few hours. It turned out as a human rights violation all across the world. That internet had been shut down for a couple of hours. Even it was for the good of the people. Today, in this modern age, to take such an action, and thereafter, I'm quite sure. I know Nepalese army and the Nepalese the state, the people in uniform. They will not take an action of carrying or firing directly against the youth. They understand what happens. So there is something much more, which is much more devious, which is happening. And I think the political establishment there needs to be very, very careful. In case the Western eyes set their course on Nepal, they'll be doomed forever, right? They have to control this.
Eventually,
I'm
towards
confident-
after hinting at it right through your deposition, towards the end, the last line you used the word Western influence. So we know where it is, who wanted an airbase and an island, the Saint Martin Islands. It all started there with Bangladesh. the Hambantota port, the Chinese influence, and who wanted to negate that in Sri Lanka. And of course, Imran Khan's tirade against America sees him incarcerated. So
Now,
it all.
you just had one quick line. See what is happening in Balochistan.
Yeah.
All these trouble spots are denying space to one country,
Yeah.
and which is that it's not India, right?
Yeah, right.
It is somebody else.
Correct. It is somebody else, and their deep state is operating via their intelligence wing, etc., who are there. But the influence of social media also. There is talk that even defense enterprises today, which are incorporated in the US, the state government itself is saying that we want to be stakeholders. So somewhere the state control and the influence of the state, even on tech, is it possible, Dr. Ranganathan? And can tech orchestrate regime changes? Now, how dangerous does that become for a nation like India if all of this is happening all around us? Right or wrong, I'm not getting into it, but I'm just saying the sphere of influence. Yes.
No, absolutely. And the answer to both your questions is yes. But good evening to you and to my fellow panelists. At the beginning, let me say that I have a very few axioms in my life that I adhere to, and two of them are the following: that I am completely always against communists and their authoritarian regimes. So my sympathy goes to Miss Oli, who's a wonderful panelist out here, and I sympathize with her opposition to the communist authoritarian regimes of Nepal. You would be hard pressed to wonder if this is actually Kerala, because if you look at all communist regimes, in fact, in Kerala, hundreds of people were booked for their posts criticizing Pinarayi Vijayan. In fact, the Kerala government was about to bring in section 118 of the new Police Act, whereby they would regulate social media. So this is passe, this is kosher for communist regimes. They want to control right from Lenin onwards, and this is Mr. Oli is part of a Communist Party of Nepal, Marxist fused with Leninist, whatever that means. But let's deal with facts out here. And the facts are that the ban has been imposed following a Supreme Court of Nepal order, which said that the social media companies have to comply with the Nepalese regulations. Now, as it happens, I am a free speech absolutist. I am against all regulations. I am for social media companies following the national laws. But here, the regulations that were proposed by the Nepalese governments were almost identical to Indian regulations that have also been told to the social media companies operating in India to comply. Now, many of them have not complied. For example, user traceability. WhatsApp refuses to comply and the matter is in the Indian courts. But some have complied on, for example, having a compliance officer, having a grievance officer. So these regulations were identical in the case of Nepal, and they were ratified by the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said that if the social media companies don't follow it, action should be taken. So the government has taken action. Now, Miss Oli, who's out here, let her say that she is against the Supreme Court order. Is she against the Supreme Court order?
Khushbu ji, can you hear me? Yeah. The question was to you. Are you against the Supreme Court order?
I can't hear you. Can you repeat that for me, please?
The Dr. Ranganathan is asking that the regulations and to regulate social media was a Supreme Court order. So are you against the Supreme Court order?
The clarity of the Supreme Court order is yet not completely fair, because जो व्याख्या इन लोगों ने सुप्रीम कोर्ट का ऑर्डर का दिया हुआ है ये ठीक नहीं है. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to get the government to register, get these companies to register here, or get them to ये जो सूचीकरण की बात बोल रहे हैं, I'm not against that. I'm saying that has to be happened. But when these movement escalated, when the public showed their grievances against this, the government should have been sensible. Before this situation had escalated, they should have come into table talks, or we should have talked about this earlier beforehand. This happened, and
Right.
Does the Supreme Court order actually state that way? It's not. जो व्याख्या वहाँ पे है वो बिल्कुल जो अभी I'm at the trauma center, I'm at the hospital. I cannot really clearly hear all your arguments because I'm here
Right.
where the casualties are. I'm sitting in the hospital.
Right. We'll try and get her back. Viewers, we'll try and get her back. Please work with us here. She is sitting inside near the trauma center inside the hospital where she's saying 21 kids, largely youngsters, have been shot. Some of them point blank on their foreheads, 13-year-old, 16-year-old, 18-year-olds amongst the casualty list. That is unfortunate and it's hurtful to the nation. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan, please complete, and then Ambassador Rajiv Tubra. Yeah.
As I said, my sympathies entirely lie with Miss Oli, and of course, what has happened is very tragic. But I just stated the facts out here.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court ruling was there, and can I also say that, as is the norm of the communists, the Prime Minister, Mr. Oli, was muddying the waters by saying that don't you want the social media companies to pay tax? They already are paying taxes. They are. Like in India, the social media companies in Nepal are paying taxes. So this was just to have those regulations that are already present in India that many social media companies are defying right now. The case, as I said, with WhatsApp is in court. It's being fought in court. Now tomorrow, the government can say that, look, WhatsApp is not complying. We're going to ban WhatsApp. I don't know whether it's going to be a Supreme Court order that allows the government to ban WhatsApp, but if you don't comply with an order, and the order is ratified by the Supreme Court, I'm afraid it's not really government's fault.
Yeah, but the other thing is that one has to appreciate this kind of a turnout across multiple cities cannot come just because social media is banned. Yeah, it's not banned indefinitely. It's only 1 day or 2 days that it's been banned. Had it been banned for a month, 2 months, and then it would have really affected livelihoods, as people are saying, or connectivity, as people are saying, then there was some merit. But there is some merit, Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, in what General Pandey is pointing out too, that this has to be organized. It cannot be organic. It was not organic in Bangladesh. It was not organic in Sri Lanka, and we learned that post facto. It was not organic in Islamabad or Pakistan either.
Exactly. In fact, General Pandey very rightly mentioned that this seems to be a South Asia phenomenon, which should concern us in the sense that we should at least watch it closely and carefully. Second thing is, as you said, the suddenness of the entire movement.
Yes.
Because in Bangladesh, it was building up over time. In Sri Lanka, it was building up over time till it reached a crescendo. In Kathmandu, it was with the permission, as I've already said, of the government that the students under NGO took out their procession. It just turned out to be very large. But the ban was only a part of their grudge. The larger grudges were the lifestyle of the ministerial kids, the lifestyle of corruption that some ministers are indulging in. The other thing is unemployment. Nepal is suffering from unemployment, and more than 50% of its population is youth under the age of 30. So these resentments were multiplying. The action of the government meant that their anger is now coming up, not just in Kathmandu, but also in cities like Viratnagar, Pokhara, and so on, which is very worrying. And the additional factor is Nepali Congress reaction, because it is the major party in this coalition.
Right.
It is not Oli's Communist Party, which is the major party. They are 1 vote short of Nepali Congress's 80 votes.
Right.
So it is a tricky situation. I mean, it'll be hard to speculate whether tomorrow will be a repeat of the same, or will the movement die down. Even if it dies down, the resentment is not going to die down.
Correct. But General Pandey, is something like this, can it be orchestrated in Bharat, or can there be an attempt to do something similar here?
No, it has already been orchestrated a couple of times. I think I will not start naming, because you and your channel will start getting quite a hate this thing. But you know exactly, for nearly about year and a half, funds came from across. It was well calibrated. People moved all around Delhi. Number of incidents happened. Even now, if you look at it, in last about 10 years, there are very prominent spots when things have been instigated. But somewhere, I think this government, I don't know how they have controlled. Any other government would have actually got number of people killed, but they did not open fire or used harsh measures to control these things, which, that was at cost of a lot of financial losses, economic losses. And everybody knew the funding was from abroad. Similar actions, very harsh actions were being taken in those other countries against similar agitations, were being hailed as taking correct law and order management or law and order situation. But in India, the government allowed it to go for more than a year and thereafter. Similarly, you look at these instances of the fractures and the exploitation of fault lines which is being brought about. The tech part which you have said is the most dangerous. While we must continue to support social media, open, freedom to voice your thing. But today, when you open your social media, you realize that the way calibration of shaping of mind and division and widening of the fault lines is taking place. How does it happen that a statement which is made by one particular person about during a briefing suddenly goes out in the same manner even without correcting the language? That toolkit is followed through. When Hindenburg's statement comes out at 12 o'clock in the night, within half a minute, 200 pages worth of a report is read, and people, including the top leadership or spokesperson and people who are handling the Twitter handles now, are actually posting everything out. So there is a system, there is a method in this orchestration, exploitation of technology which is available. In fact, I today has started having to believe that is technology bane or boon for countries like Nepal and our country, because such challenge is not emerging into these countries like the Western countries or the country like China or the more authoritarian regimes, because they have a very, very strict control on what content flows out to whom. Right. But unfortunately, in our countries and all, which are democracy, where freedom of expression is given much more weightage than actually law and order, can disturb peace for a long time. So there are possibilities here.
But much that you raised that red flag, I absolutely am proud of the fact that Bharat is perhaps one of the most free nations across the world. As a democracy, freer than many other those who claim to be democratic, far more as a free, the freedom that to express, to consume, to peruse, and to also opine. But more importantly, I think the concern factors nations like China, nations like Korea, nations like Russia, America have their own individual platforms. They have platforms which are homegrown, homebred, and then they're spread all across. Bharat doesn't have that. Bharat has to rely on tech from China, big tech from China, or big tech from the US, or big tech from Russia or Israel, not big tech for these platforms, for engagement, for communication, for generation of revenue, etc., and connectivity. All of that. So that's a concern. But we have to shift focus, gents. General Pandey, I know you're not there with us for the next conversation, but if you can stay back, it'll be fantastic. We have about 18, 19 minutes to converse.